You can see their musical item following the message of support from a religious leader. And a bit earlier on, we saw Sanao Tambo there just leading in the national anthem. And as he had stated that the EFF, as many have now become accustomed to, does not sing the stem part of the national anthem. And today, the person leading the proceedings is the national chair, Veronica Mente, who has been speaking there. I mean, if we just look at this particular political party formed in 2013, and what many would say their ideology is that of Marxist-Leninist, and as a left-leaning party, they have consistently stuck to their economic policies or what they plan to present to South Africa. They've got their 7 cardinal pillars, among them being the nationalization of mines as well as banks. So it's quite a lot that this particular party is offering to South Africa. And today, we're going to hear the EFF leader launching their manifesto for 2024. And as I stated a bit earlier on, that the EFF had stated that they would not be bussing in supporters from different provinces, but would allow this to serve as a litmus test as to their support in KZN, which has been growing with every election. So it's quite important, as many that follow stadiumology, they would say it will be important to see if indeed they'll be able to follow or at least to fill that particular stadium. But South Africans should expect practical and implementable solutions to all their crises. This is according to the EFF's Treasurer General, Ompile Mauda. She was speaking to the SABC News on the sidelines of the party's manifesto launch underway at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban. Now, Mauda says their manifesto will be anchored on their 7 cardinal pillars, as we stated, with the redistribution of land at the heart of their campaign.
The answer lies in the founding manifesto of the EFF, which talks about the 7 non-negotiable cardinal pillars. The first one being the expropriation of land without compensation. We stand true to the cause of expropriation of land without compensation, because at the center of the struggle is the issue of the land. For you to even think about building an infrastructure, you have to own the land. You can't do anything on air. For you to run trains, you have to have the land. For you to build a road, you have to have the land. For you to build a clinic, you have to have the land. For you to build 1 million houses, that the president of the ANC lied to the people of South Africa, claiming to go and build 1 million houses in Alex. You have to have the land for you to build those houses. For you to have free quality decolonized education, you must build the infrastructure, the buildings. You need to have the land. So everything resides around the issue of the land. So you can expect that in our manifesto, the issue of the land will come out. And everything else, as I said, something will come from the land. The high unemployment rate we see in the country is because of the land. The high levels of crime in the country is because of the issues of the land. Because once you've got the land, you are able to build factories, which will then make provisions for job employment for our people. Young people are saying, we were promised that the doors of learning will open, but it's now 30 years into democracy, the doors of learning are not open. So our young people, as you can see them, they came in their numbers. They want an implementable solution that how then do we move forward as a country? The economy of this country at the moment is not doing well. So everything else resides around the issue of the land. You can expect that the land will come in very strongly. You can expect the issue of nationalizations of mines, banks and other strategic sectors of the economy. You can expect that you're going to hear about free quality decolonized education. You can expect to hear about free sanitation, housing. You can expect to hear about an equality. Our people need to be equal. We need to have an equal society. We are the most unequal society in the country. GBV, crimes, those are the things that we that are living in this country. Now, here in KZN, every other day, we hear about the killings of our people. When you look at, okay, if it's political killings, you can be guaranteed that there's a tender somewhere that somebody did not want to give, and hence somebody got eliminated. So it's all levels of poverty that leads our people to do crime.
There you have it. That is Ompile Mauda, the TG of the EFF, speaking to my colleague Samkelo Masego. So quite a lot to be expected today, be it the decolonized education as she speaks of. You would know that the EFF in particular have been seized with the issue of electricity. For them, their position has always been that there's no need to do away with coal-powered stations as yet. They are not necessarily particularly fans of the just transition. They say it needs to be at a pace that our economy can handle. And as many would have seen, that the likes of Komati Port in Mpumalanga have struggled immensely beyond the decision to close that particular mine. So they remain those that are saying that perhaps the transition should be at a far slower pace. So quite a lot we're expecting around the power crisis, around the issues of logistics in the country. We know what's happening with Transnet, but also to take it back to some of the people that we've seen today. We saw a bit earlier Violet Zungula walking in with Dalumpofu now. Particularly the ATM has been a strong partner or ally of the EFF in Parliament, as we've seen on a number of issues. They have voted together. You would also remember that Mzwane Lemanyi was part of ATM, particularly confined to policies of ATM. He has since crossed the floor to join the EFF, but has stated on numerous occasions that they remain a friend of ATM. So most certainly we do expect that Violet Zungula will be giving his message of support. Another particular leader we expect would be Bantu Olomisa, the UDM leader, also a strong ally of the EFF, as we've seen in Parliament, voting together on a number of issues. So quite a lot that we expect to hear from the EFF leader, Julius Malema, as soon as we can take you back to KwaZulu-Natal. But before that, let's shift our focus to this story now. It's been exactly 1 year since rapper Keenan, aka Forbes, was murdered outside a Durban restaurant alongside his friend, celebrity chef Tibelo Tibbs Motswana. The duo's death sent shockwaves throughout South Africa. A year later, police have yet to make a meaningful breakthrough in the case. Senior reporter Jade Pulser takes a look back.
These were the last known images of AKA toasting with friends at a popular restaurant, Wish, on Florida Road in Durban. The rap sensation was in a jovial mood, having celebrated his 35th birthday a week before. Later in that evening, he was booked to perform at a Durban nightclub. In a tragic turn of events, as AKA was leaving the restaurant, he was gunned down. CCTV footage that later went viral showed a man wearing a white sweater and a hat walking towards Forbes, firing 2 shots to his head, killing him instantly. A second gunman is also seen firing towards the group. AKA's longtime friend Tibelo Tibbs Motswana was also killed in the crossfire.
A lot of people are waking up, in fact millions are waking up to the news of the passing of rapper aka Keenan Forbes. The news broke last night, Sim, at about 10 o'clock. We were told that AKA has succumbed to gunshot wounds here at Florida Road.
The news of AKA's death stunned the world. His visibly shaken father and brother arrived at the crime scene to meet police. In the days that followed, hundreds of people came to pay their respects.
The sad reality was when we found out here, like everyone is in shock and disbelief because this doesn't happen here. What I witnessed was an absolute somber scene. It was a scene of death. It was a scene of, like a dark cloud had come over Florida Road, which we know to be a beautiful leafy suburb, which we come to celebrate and enjoy, and food. It's our place of happiness.
What's the one thing you're going to remember him by?
All his music. I mean, the man has done an utmost. I mean, where he started up to where he is now, he made himself a big flippin' deal. He's done the most. From the old school tracks till new school tracks, and he's featuring with major artists. He's done brilliant for himself, and also I've noticed he's a brilliant father to his daughter, and I feel it for her the most and his family.
So it's very heartbreaking. This is where we walk, this is where we grew up. So something like this to happen for someone that we love so much and dearly, I have no words, honestly. I have no words. It's heartbreaking.
Following the news, artists and fans took to various social media platforms to express their shock. Musicians, producers, politicians and celebrities paid tributes, a testament to his impact.
Tonight for the Holy Spirit to be able.
A night vigil was held for Forbes and Motswana outside the restaurant for mourners to bid farewell. AKA was also honored with a public memorial and buried during a private funeral.
As a mother that has had a child taken away from me, from the world, from you so violently, so callously, such calculated behavior, I believe. I feel he was just literally taken out in cold blood. I think I have a responsibility towards his people, his fans, the people that supported him for almost 2 decades now. 2 decades of AKA. Today and every other day going forward, it will not just be about me, the rest of our family, extended family and friends. It will be about the legacy as our broader family. I believe that is what Kenan would have wanted, because Kenan belonged to all of us.
Motswane's family had a private memorial and funeral service, whilst the two families and AKA's fans were grieving. Police were under pressure to find the suspects. Months after his death, police announced they had found the gun and identified vehicles used to carry out the hit.
We've identified at least a couple of vehicles that were used. Some of the vehicles were used as getaway, some of the vehicles that were used as spotters, some of the vehicles that might have been used by people after the fact that we suspect that they are suspect in this regard. We've identified at least one firearm that has been used and positively identified to have shot and killed Mr. Forbes on that eve. We are, and such, are in our position as well. And we, as SAPS, have, as I said, identified few individuals that we're going to, maybe after discussing with the NPA, we might then start bringing them in.
Since the discovery of the gun, authorities have remained mum on the investigation.
It's unfortunate that the law agencies have not succeeded in this case, but as a sector, we'll keep probing and asking questions. But we trust and believe in our police that soon they will update the nation. It's so sad that it's been a year, but law enforcement agencies must do their job.
Talk facts and give you damn credit. I got a few things in the cabinet, 5 gold rings like a champion, and I ain't gonna change, I'm a savage. Sipping rosé with the fam.
AKA had an illustrious career that began in the early 2000s with the group Entity before releasing his debut album Alter Ego in 2011. In the years to follow, he released several albums and won multiple awards. Known for his songs like Fela and Versace, Prada, All Eyes on Me, and the 2020 hit song Lemons, the hitmaker continues to shine even beyond the grave, as the final album Mass Country went gold within 2 weeks since its debut. In the lead up to the rapper's first death anniversary, the Forbes family continues to keep his memory alive. The family announced the launch of the Kenan Forbes Foundation, which aims to honor the musician whilst also contributing to society.
The man was tripping in swag. Yeah. Jiggy, jiggy, heavy, heavy. All girls love me, all like money. Call me jiggy, jiggy, heavy, heavy. All eyes on me.
Machiavelli.
Yeah, yeah. Doing 240 on like yeah.
For SABC News, I'm Jade Paulser in Durban.
We shift our focus to this story now. Eskom is upped load shedding to stage 6 until further notice. Eskom said it escalated load shedding because 2 generating units were taken offline and it needed to replenish the pump storage dams in preparation for the week ahead. This is the 3rd escalation in load shedding since Thursday night. Now, meanwhile, President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's reluctant to say when load shedding will end. He says when this was done in the past and was not achieved, people accused him of lying. Ramaphosa was speaking on the sidelines of the annual Presidential Golf Challenge held at the Atlantic Beach Golf Estate, Ilmokbulstrand outside Cape Town.
We're doing all we can to ensure that we address load shedding. It is a constant problem for South Africans, we know that. And everybody feels it, and it's not comfortable at all. In fact, it does sometimes evoke a lot of anger. But as I've said, we do have the resilience as South Africans to keep on ensuring that we do hope for a better time, and a better time is coming.
Residents affected by massive power cuts in areas of the central Karoo region in the Western Cape will have to wait a week for electricity to be restored. The power outage occurred this past weekend following a thunderstorm which damaged several electricity pylons. Eskom says a recovery operation is in full swing to try and restore power.
Since Saturday, the towns of Roggeveld, Laingsburg, Ladysmith, Luchamka, Swartberg, Merweville, Maatjiesfontein and Prince Albert have been without power. The affected communities are also dealing with water shortages as pumps have stopped working. Eskom is currently working on a temporary line.
The plan is to finish the work earlier than Friday, the 15th of February next week. And to do that, we have acquired more resources from construction teams within Eskom, Eastern Cape, and more teams from contractors to join our currently working major engineering works that are currently constructing the line.
The Western Cape government has already dispatched generators to assist affected communities.
Our businesses, they are having a hard time. So some restaurants have had to close. Our big, not department stores, but grocery stores are really battling to be able to keep food fresh.
Some residents have gone back to basics, cooking outdoors, but the loss of perishable goods is taking its toll.
I did bread it and zinc and salt.
I threw it in the sink and put salt in it and then cooked it. The pot has gone black, but we just have to go on. We just have to go and make fire outside. This weekend we battled, but we just made do with outside fire. This is what we used to back in the days without electricity.
Gift of the Givers has been delivering water to clinics, hospitals, schools and old age homes in the region.
Today our focus is to make sure that all the schools has got water, and tomorrow we will go into communities and make sure that people in our communities has got the necessity of water. People's food is going off. I've spoken to a few people that said they basically lost everything that was in their fridge. Some people just got paid. They lost all their food that they bought for the next month, and that is quite sad.
Gift of the Givers says it will also start distributing food parcels to residents in the next few days. Segwi Chetty, SABC News, Prince Albert in the Central Karoo.
In Isona, President Cyril Ramaphosa reflected on developments on the international stage, saying the country has assumed its rightful place on the world stage.
As we were preparing this State of the Nation address, we were deeply saddened to hear of the tragic passing of Dr. Hage Geingob, the President of the Republic of Namibia. President Geingob was a dear friend to me and to the people of South Africa.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has hailed the late Namibian President Hage Geingob as a champion of African peace, progress and development. Geingob passed away after a short battle with cancer. President Ramaphosa then went to the current situation in Gaza, emboldened by the country's recent International Court of Justice ruling, which ordered Israel to prevent any act of genocide in the besieged enclave.
Guided by the fundamental principle of human rights and freedom, we have taken up the Palestinians' cause to prevent further deaths and destructions in Gaza. We know that there are some in our nation who do not support this cause that we have embarked upon. We have welcomed the ruling of the International Court of Justice that Israel must take all measures within its power to prevent acts of genocide against Palestinians. And we condemn the killing of civilians on all sides and call on all parties involved in the conflict to commit to a peace process that will deliver a two-state solution.
The president also updated the nation as the conflict continues between Russia and Ukraine.
Our engagement with the parties in the Russia-Ukraine conflict through the Africa Peace Initiative are progressing. We engage in these peace efforts because we believe that even the most intractable conflicts can be brought to an end through negotiations.
Ramaphosa says South Africa's future is inextricably linked to the African continent.
We will build on the progress we have made in establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, which will transform South Africa's economy and that of the continent by creating new jobs and increasing economic participation across our continent. And we will place Africa's development at the top of the agenda when we as South Africa host the G20 next year in 2025.
Meanwhile, the president further says the expansion of BRICS from 5 countries to 10 present opportunities to boost trade and fortify political and diplomatic ties in the global south. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Border Management Authority has been engaging with the United Nations Refugee Agency at the Beitbridge border post in Musina and Limpopo. The aim was to provide a shared understanding of the port operations using fact-based data as well as analysis. There were also efforts to ensure that refugees are protected. The Beitbridge border post is used by mostly Zimbabweans and immigrants from other SADC countries. SABC's Koketso Motao reports.
The Border Management Authority is responsible for the execution of frontline border law enforcement functions related to immigration control, among others. The meeting between the BMA and the UN Refugee Agency was to discuss BMA activities and opportunities to further strengthen work in promoting international and humanitarian laws. The UN Refugee Agency is a global organization dedicated to saving lives, protecting rights, and building a better future for people forced to flee their homes due to conflict and persecution. The agency's Assistant Commissioner for Protection says they will continue to provide training and capacity building to BMA officials at the border post.
I'm remarkably impressed by the dedication, the commitment, and really the willingness to engage with us, both on the part of the Commissioner but also the rest of his team in terms of refugee protection. So identifying asylum seekers and refugees when they cross the border, ensuring that they have proper permits so that they can then present themselves at the refugee reception officers to have their claims heard. And they have been assured at all levels with all the different agencies who are present here that they will indeed continue to comply with their obligations in relation to asylum seekers and refugees. So we are very, very happy with this visit.
Meanwhile, the Commissioner of the Border Management Authority, Dr. Mike Masiapato, says the entity will ensure that rights of refugees and asylum seekers are protected.
As we were explaining the actual Border Management Authority and the work that we do and the relationship that we have with the rest of the departments, the key issue was the collaboration that we have to ultimately forge between the BMA and the UNHCR as well as IOM. But the key area of collaboration is around the issues of capacity in terms of them assisting us in the training of our officials in order to make sure that as the BMA we do observe all the existing international conventions and protocols as well as our own domestic laws in handling the issues of refugees as well as asylum seekers.
Dr. Masiapato says the BMA was also introduced to the United Nations Refugee Agency and the International Office on Migrations. The BMA was officially launched on the 5th of October last year as the third law enforcement entity in South Africa. I'm Koketso Motao, SABC News, Beitbridge.
A much-anticipated new hostage deal between Israel and Hamas appears to be on life support after Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected it while speaking alongside U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who was in Tel Aviv. This was as part of his continued shuttle diplomacy in the region. Now, despite the pushback from Israel, Washington's top diplomat struck an optimistic tone.
The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs confirms that intense Israeli bombardments across much of Gaza continue, with hundreds of Palestinians being killed or injured, warning that an estimated 300,000 people in northern Gaza are at risk of famine, as calls for an immediate ceasefire go nowhere fast enough, while efforts to agree a new hostage deal remains tenuous at best. As Israel's premier maintained, a military victory was within reach within months.
I utterly reject the Hamas monster's capitulation terms. Hamas is demanding, in exchange for the release of our hostages, the end of the war, the withdrawal of our forces from Gaza, the release of the murderers and rapists of the Nukhba, and leaving Hamas in place. Were we to agree to this, our soldiers would have fallen in vain. Were we to agree to this, we would not be able to ensure the security of our citizens. We would be unable to safely restore the evacuees to their homes, and the next October 7th would only be a question of time. I am not prepared to accept such a mortal blow to the security of Israel. Therefore, we will not agree to this.
Hamas's three-phased 135-day proposal would see all Israeli women, males under 19, the elderly and sick released during the first 45-day phase, in exchange for the release of Palestinian women and children held in Israeli jails, with an allowance of 500 aid trucks into Gaza daily. Phase 2 would see the release of all remaining male hostages, with Israel expected to withdraw from all areas in Gaza. Aid continuing to flow, while reconstruction to damaged infrastructure in Gaza commences. In the final 45-day phase, Hamas proposes the release of any bodies or remains by both sides, while humanitarian aid continues. The militant group believes that by the end of Phase 3, both sides would have reached agreement to end the war.
We had an opportunity today to discuss with the Israeli government the response that Hamas sent last night to the proposal that the United States, Qatar, and Egypt had put together to bring the remaining hostages home and extend the humanitarian pause. What I can tell you about these discussions is that while there are some clear non-starters in Hamas's response, we do think it creates space for agreement to be reached. And we will work at that relentlessly until we get there.
A new deal appears to be the best hope of any lengthy pause in fighting, with an Algerian-drafted UN Security Council resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire making slow progress in negotiations after early indications from the United States that it didn't have Washington's support, as the UN's top human rights official voiced deep concern about widespread destruction of civilian infrastructure in Gaza.
The Israeli Defense Forces are reportedly destroying all buildings in the Gaza Strip that are within a kilometer of the Israel-Gaza fence, clearing the area with the objective of creating a buffer zone. Destructions carried out to create a buffer zone for general security purposes do not appear consistent with the narrow military operations exceptions that are set out in international humanitarian law. Extensive destruction of property not justified by military necessity and carried out unlawfully and wantonly amounts to a grave breach of the Fourth Geneva Convention and a war crime.
As a diplomatic path out of this conflict remains elusive for now.
It is very difficult to preach hope when you sit in a safe place to people that are sitting in the middle of what is hellish. And I think we should take a step back and not be too bold and think that...
And that's where we leave it for today. I'm back tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon further.